Everyone, welcome. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Yeah, welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. So it's been a little bit. Wisdom Wednesday. Oh, I gotta mute that there. Okay, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Can you still hear me? Can someone give me? Yes, awesome. I'm also live streaming this on Facebook, and so I can hear it bouncing back at me, and it's too much going on. So thanks for the thumbs up. So, welcome everyone. It's been a little bit since I did a Wisdom Wednesday. There's a lot that's been unfolding in my life, and so my attention has been elsewhere. And I almost didn't do this month because I'm just got so much happening. And thank you, Kimberly. She was like, "You have some important stuff to share," and I do. This time of year, this transition from late summer. So we just went through our Labor Day, right? So official last day of summer into early fall is can be a really difficult transition for many people, myself included. I've always struggled with this transition. So I feel like around this time every year, I like to do what I think of as a public service announcement to let people know if you're struggling with angst, with overwhelm, with restlessness, with insomnia, with melancholy. This is very much related to this season. I'm not going to say that we can blame it 100% on this transition, but it certainly stirs up a lot in people. But it often is very subconscious. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about what I've noticed in myself and what I've come to conclude about this time of year. Lots of tips I want to share. We're going to do a meditation together. We're going to have conversations. So please chat away in that chat box. I love to see what people are asking and curious about. And then we're also going to see if we can shift from being sort of stuck in this, what I would say, almost a vibrational frequency of anxiety. How can we shift to higher levels of consciousness? This is something I've been really curious about for a long time, but have been really sitting into this idea of 2025 as a year of intense endings and intense beginnings. So if you follow teachers who are really tapped into the energetics of the planet, everyone is sort of talking about 2025 as this year of massive shifting and a big opportunity for us to raise or lift our consciousness to higher levels. And so I've been curious about that. I thought I'd share a little bit about that and how it relates to this time of year, because I think we're actually given an opportunity right now to sort of lift into a different level beyond anxiety. At least that's what I'm attempting to do. So that's where we're going today. I don't have as many slides today. I'm also in a transition period in my life of being softer with myself and trying to lessen the high expectations I place on myself. So instead of 40 slides today, I think you get 8 slides or something like that. So, but there's still some visuals that I like to provide for you. All right, so let's get that going here for all of you. All right. So we're going to work with the waning light. Those of you who are new, these are I always say the different roles that I play in this life. But the real mission that I do in terms of this, specifically this Wisdom Wednesday, and really all the work I do is working to be a bridge between the beloved disciplines that I've studied for 3 decades now, the discipline of psychology and the discipline of yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, all the sister sciences in that tradition. And there's some really great stuff that's coming up that I'll just kind of plant a couple seeds for. I'm bringing back Reclaim. This will be my 4th year in a row to teach this. We're going to start right at the end of October. So we're halfway between fall equinox and winter solstice. We're going to start and we're going to work 12 weeks ending between winter solstice and spring equinox. So these are key juncture points, and there's a very clear reason why I do it in those 12 weeks. It's the darkest time of the year. And so we work with the dark in a very conscious way. I'm going to talk more about how this has been really life altering for me. Didn't know it when I started this program. And also, it's going to be different this year because in the past 3 years, we've primarily worked with reclaiming our feminine energy, which has very much been lost in patriarchal culture. But through the course of my own evolution through this material, I'm realizing not only do we need to reclaim our feminine, we need to reclaim our healthy masculine energy and work more towards a state of union in ourselves so that we can show up in deeper balance in the world. So it's going to feel different this year because I'm bringing in more masculine components as well. So that's going to start end of October. Then in January, I'm co-teaching with two of my favorite colleagues, Kimberly, who's the studio manager at Heartland. Thank you, Kimberly. She's on this call. And Uma, who's a teacher from India through Heartland. Uma brings a master's in yoga. She's taught multiple trainings in India. She's really seeped in the tradition of yoga. And we're going to offer a 200-hour training for anyone who's interested in becoming a yoga teacher. I've taught several teacher trainings, but never at Heartland, ironically. 17 years I've had Heartland Yoga. We've decided it's time to bring in teacher training. So that'll start in January, and we're going to be teaching from the vantage point that yoga is a discipline for the mind. Western society has often convinced us it's about strengthening our body, having more flexible bodies, improving our body. Yes, we deal with the body absolutely in yoga, but it's at its core a practice for the mind. And with the uptick of mental health issues and trauma in our culture, we need practitioners and teachers and people who can really help settle the restlessness of people's minds. So that's our intention behind it. And then post that training, I'll go into sort of my signature training, which is Yoga for the Mind, which is a deep dive into how we bring psychology and yoga together, not only in the therapy room, but in the yoga space as well. So that's all coming up. If you're interested, reach out to us. Nothing is open for registration yet, but it'll open here soon. Okay, so fall anxiety, autumn anxiety. I'm going to talk about it briefly from two vantage points. The yogis call it Vata derangement. So the yogis have long known that in the fall, late summer into fall, it is very common to experience these kind of symptoms. We feel ungrounded. We are kind of constantly going. It's hard to sit still. There's a restlessness. Our eyes sort of dart all over the place. We might be breathing in our chest. We might be showing digestive problems. Our mind might be scattered all over the place. Insomnia definitely can spike in the autumn time. And there's a general feeling of anxiety, fear, restlessness. I would even add melancholy on this. So this is a common pattern that's been sort of known in the yoga Ayurvedic tradition. When I learned about it, it was such a relief to know that these symptoms that I'd been having, probably since I was a child, had some explanation. I always found the transition to starting school really challenging, but never quite understood why. So the yogis would say, to boil it down in very simplistic terms, in the fall, there is a lack of downward flowing energy. So in some ways, our energy is stuck in these upper realms, in the head, in the chest. Our minds are very busy, very full. What we need, the medicine, is to get that energy to flow down. Now, psychological science, when I started to dig into it, also says, yeah, there's more anxiety in the fall. People have more panic, especially if there's a warm wind. So whenever the wind starts to kick up and blow those leaves off the tree, again, panic seems to uptick a little bit. So we know this pattern is real, right? Science is establishing that. And then just last night, I had dinner with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Candida Maurer, a well-known local psychologist and wise woman. And she told me about this book. I'd never heard of it. Many of you may have heard of it. It's called The Golden Bough. It was published late 1800s, almost to the 1900s, by a Sir James Fraser. And he did work looking at all of the written fairy tales and myths and Shakespearean works. And he started to look at when were these works of art or these works of literature set? What season were they set in? And look what he found. Comedies tend to be set in the spring. Romances set in the summer. Tragedies set in the fall. Satire set in the winter. So here we are. Here we are again in fall. It can feel, even in the literature, like a tragic time. The plants start to die, the trees lose their leaf. And so, even if we tend to love this time of year, there's a deeper, almost existential, unconscious knowing that things are dying. And for most of us, death can put us in the face of some fear or some worry or some rumination. And so, there's a lot of evidence as to why we might struggle this time of year. So, I recently remembered something that I had learned years ago, and so I wanted to bring it into this conversation today, that there is a point in the cycle, the yearly cycle of a tree, and it happens right about now. So the very, very end of summer, right before fall, the fall equinox, when a tree begins to cut off the energy that it's been extending out to the limbs, the branches, the leaves. And instead, the energy of the tree moves into the trunk and down into the roots. So the most root growth happens right now because the energy has been pulled away from growing higher branches, broader limbs. And that energy, the tree instinctively knows I've got to pull in and I've got to root this energy down. So this is the time to have deeper roots. So what a beautiful, beautiful teaching to all of us about what we should be doing right now as well, pulling that awareness in and rooting that awareness down. So I just had a conversation this morning with a good friend who asked me, what are you talking about on your Wisdom Wednesday? So I gave them a very short snippet of what I wanted to talk about. And they said to me, wow, I realized that for years I would move into a lot of melancholy at this time of year. And I believed, this friend said, I believed at the time that it was due to the difficult relationship that I had with my father. That's what I always assumed it was about. And they said, summer was always a time of liberation and freedom and parties and joy. And I think that is exactly what most of us experience, that summer's an expansive time. It's also a time that can distract us, we might say, from the internal spaces. And our internal spaces are where we hold grief and sadness and shame and fear and all the stuff that's harder to work with. It does get pulled in and down. So summer is a time where actually I think that we are meant to be in the world. We are meant to be more extroverted. We are meant to be more engaged in the environment around us. But just like at the fall, a tree goes in and that energy roots down. We as human beings, because we're aligned with nature, that's at the heart of the yoga tradition, we align with nature. We are also meant to pull our awareness into our midline and start to root it down. Now, this friend went on to say to me, they had sort of a aha moment this morning as well. Like, wow, for all those years, I believed that melancholy was due to my father not being around. And yet I realized what it was is that the season was asking me to go inward. And there was stuff in me that was very unresolved around my father. So just the season pulling me in created this sort of depressive response. It wasn't necessarily about dad, it was about everything that was unresolved in me that I hadn't yet faced. So I think that this could be at the heart of why many of us start to feel more challenging emotions, is that we're being asked to go in and down. But if going in and down, there's unresolved, unintegrated, hard stuff, we're going to start to maybe sense that at some deeper level. So for me, there was always melancholy there as well, I believe, but there was a lot of anxiety. And what is under anxiety is fear. And the thing about fear, and fear, anxiety, common this time of year, the thing about fear is meant to be a very fast experienced emotion. It should be quick. So when fear comes into our life, it's not problematic per se. It's a signal that there's something in our environment or there's something happening right now that I need to get to safety, or I need to protect myself, or I need to do something different. So fear should be a very quick experience. It shows us something is off. I need to take action. I need to do something about this. And then the fear should be resolved once we reach safety. Problem with modern society is that fear, and let's just take a moment to acknowledge, if we're consuming a lot of news, if we're consuming a lot of awareness of the external world around us, it is in a massive vibration of fear, right? I mean, even our media knows that if they feed us fear, we have a tendency to purchase things or to engage in more capitalistic behaviors. So fear is all around us. And if we're tapped into that, we're going to live from that place. So not only this time of year, but culture is really feeding it to us. And so it's stirring up a lot, can stir up a lot for us. So my question for all of you is, are you stuck in fear? I mean, fear should be fast, but if we're in the vibration of consuming fear-based images, fear-based television, um, it's not fast, it sticks. And then it turns into anxiety, it turns into sleeplessness, it turns into worry, it turns into rumination, all of this stuff that really causes a deep suffering. Because I know I've been there, spent years caught up in cycles of deep worry and rumination. So I think it's important. So just like they always say, adversity is the great awakener. I would say autumn can be the great awakener for us. It can really help us see, what am I, where is my emotional space going? And starting to really observe, am I plugged in to some kind of vibration of fear, rumination, worry? And is there a different possibility? So I can say that I was plugged into that worry rumination place for years, maybe decades. But in the last 5, 8, 10 years, once I learned about Vata derangement, once I learned that, oh, this is a common thing. It's not just me. I'm not crazy. Lots of people have this experience in the fall. And there are tools that I can implement to not feel so overwhelmed. Things have begun to shift with me. So I want to share with you maybe 5, 6, 7 things that I do this time of year religiously every day to help me maybe slide through this clunky time for me a little bit easier. First thing I do, this is not going to be potentially a popular one, I give up coffee. Coffee is a stimulant. My body actually can handle coffee really well in the summer. I love a good iced coffee. I have my favorite one that I order a lot in the summer. But I know that come this time of year, I'm already feeling more angstiness, more up energy. I could add caffeine just to keep bringing me up. But what I need is this downward force of energy. So I give up coffee. I go from to go to a half decaffeinated. Now I'm off of it altogether. I still drink tea, so I still get a little caffeine. I drink cacao, which gives me a little caffeine, but not the high levels. And for me, this helps. I'm not suggesting that all of you have to give up your coffee, but it helps me absolutely. The second thing I do is every night before bed, I oil my skin. So I get an oil off of Banyan Botanicals. Maybe Kimberly could find that link. It's a good link. It's a massage oil. It's a sesame-based oil with some herbs in it. And I sit on the edge of the bathtub. I massage this oil into my skin. This is an Ayurvedic technique. It creates sort of like a barrier between your sensitive nature and the intense world around you. So I oil the body. Then I sit in an Epsom salt bath just to sort of clear the energy, any energy I've picked up during the day. And if you don't take baths, you can also put that oil on before you shower in the morning. So, but it has been game changing for me to really work with. It's called Abhyanga. It's a technique of putting oil on the body. So, huge thing for me in terms of helping lessen fall anxiety. I start to limit my intake of news. I start to limit my intake of social media. I also, again, long days of summer, I'll maybe watch more TV. I start to limit that. If I'm doing a lot of stimulating stuff at night, wreaks havoc with my sleep. So I'm just being more conscious about maybe a slow walk at night, reading a book, but not doing too much sort of online stuff at night, because again, that's going to bring my energy up and out. I need to bring my energy in and down. I switch from raw foods like salads, raw vegetables to cooked vegetables. Again, it's more grounding, it's more stabilizing. I definitely amp up my meditation. So if I've veered off course over the summer months, I get back on track with doing my daily meditation, and my yoga practice changes. In fact, if you are in my yoga classes, you will notice it changes in the fall. So instead of this sort of expansive energy out, we're spending a lot more time lying on the floor, grounding, hip openers, standing poses, as close to the earth as possible, as a way, again, to bring energy in and down. And then last but not least, this time of year, I realize I got to go back in and deal with anything that I have not dealt with over the busy summer months. So this is the psychological, emotional piece of going in and down, right? This is okay, what unresolved fear is there? What regret haven't I dealt with or looked at? Where am I experiencing guilt? I just am going in and down. How do I do this? I look at what I'm thinking about. I work in a journal. Of course, therapy is a great way to do this. But where things really changed, and this has been my aha. So the practices I just described have been sort of evolving and present with me for the last 5 to 10 years. But in the last 3 years, I mean, we'll say it was at the start of me teaching that reclaim class where we specifically worked with this heroine's journey of going in and down. In this 12-week class, one year I taught it for 4 months. So we did a 4-month journey in and down, starting at fall equinox, going to spring equinox. Guess it wasn't quite half a year, but it was probably from December to spring. This process of doing essentially what I would call our shadow work. What is shadow work? Shadow work is working with a part of you that you're not looking at. You've sort of pushed it away. You don't have time for it. You don't know what to do with it. So in this class, working with the tools of meditation, working with the tools of self-inquiry, journaling, and more than that, working in community. That was kind of a mind blower for me as well. So if we go in and down, we think of it as a very introverted time, and it is much more of an introverted time. But working with other people, listening to their stories of what they're finding in terms of their shadow is so enlightening because A, you realize I'm not alone. B, all of us humans have stuff to integrate, to work through, to face, to deal with. None of us get a free ride. None of us come out perfect and don't have any problems. It's so helpful to not only hear other people, but it's inspiring. It's like, oh, so and so is really doing this work and committing to these practices. I want to do the same. And what I found is by going in and down and doing this sort of very weekly, really weekly shadow work, it meant by the time we got through the winter months towards spring, there was more expansion. It's sort of like our roots went deeper. Once your roots go deeper, there's more capacity then to expand into higher frequency emotions and experiences like love, like joy, like gratitude. It's more natural because you've gone into the depths and established deeper roots. So, to maybe give you a visual, I love visuals. I want to show you one other visual here, which I've gone back to many times in my work. Profound thinker, Dr. David Hawkins, super brilliant man, wrote many books. First one was Power versus Force. This book, the Map of Consciousness Explained, I think is a really good synthesis of his work. But he essentially is a psychiatrist. He essentially wanted to understand sort of the vibrational energetic frequency of different emotions. And he did legitimate sort of scientific research on all of this. And he created this map, and I find it absolutely brilliant. So the idea is the lowest frequency emotion is shame, followed by guilt, apathy. You can read up that list. Sort of the neutral middle point is courage. So, he said courage sort of marks the shift from these more negative based emotional frequencies to the more expansive positive energy. So it takes courage essentially to move from more stuck negative emotions to more positive emotions. Now, the other point before I get deep into this, there's no bad or good emotion. They're all just wired human experiences that we all have, right? We all are going to have ups and downs. We're going to all experience every one of these emotions throughout the course of our life. So I'm not suggesting we need to get rid of shame and guilt and apathy and grief. We just don't want to live there, right? We're going to have those experiences. We just don't want to spend the majority of our time stuck in those places when we have the possibility of having this whole range of experience. Now, Dr. Hawkins in this book says that, and I think this is where I want us to begin to think about, I'm plugged into fear, especially this time of year, especially with all the stuff that's going on in the world. I'm sort of plugged into that level of fear. What is it? What do I have to do to sort of work with myself so that I have the possibility of experiencing higher levels of vibration? So Dr. Hawkins says, and this literally blows my mind, that 85% of the world calibrates under 200. So on this list here. So they're under courage. So most people, 85% of people are functioning from pride, anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame, which is why there's so much suffering and why is such an ego-driven world, because those are all qualities of an ego-driven life. Now, he says, thankfully, and this is an exact quote from him, thankfully, humankind is saved from self-destruction by virtue of the fact that there are 15% of people calibrating at more positive levels, which counterbalances the weight of this negativity. So he goes on to write, for example, one person who's vibrating at love, 500, counterbalances 750,000 people who are vibrating below 200. So there's a lot of significance to this possibility that our own inner evolution is key to the well-being of the planet. That our willingness, and the 80 plus people on this call, whatever we're at now, you guys wouldn't be on this call unless you were curious about evolving your own consciousness, which means that, and we don't need a majority of people to be on this call. That's what I find comforting. We don't need a majority of people to awaken, but we do need people to awaken and start to spend more time above 200, right? Which then is able to shift sort of this chronic negativity that the world seems to be stuck in. So it's actually exciting to me. But again, I want to sort of double down on the point that if you find yourself in fear, grief, apathy, shame, you don't need to beat yourself up about it. These are normal human experiences. The key is that we become aware that we're there and we realize, okay, what do I need to do? I need to go for a walk. I need to call that really supportive friend. I need to eat a good meal. I need to get a good night's sleep. I'm stuck in anger right now. So it's the consciousness. We are going to again bounce back and forth between all of these states. We can have a really high frequency week where we're in just love and joy and expansion. You go on retreat, you understand, we live in that space. And then the next week, it's almost as if the body is like, oh, there's some more denseness down here. There's some more fear. We got to go back and work with that. So it's sort of like it feel like a ping pong back and forth. This is sort of at least the process that I found myself in. But then something gradually changes. And Eckhart Tolle has said that this shift definitely is gradual. And when I'm talking about this shift from being stuck in thoughts, being stuck in feelings, being stuck in fear-based living. But then we awaken and we slip into, more joy. We maybe meditate or we go to a really good class or we're around somebody who's really inspired and we slip up, we rise up, we ascend. And then we shift back into our old patterns. And then we awaken again. We have a moment of clarity. And then we fall back into our old patterns. But eventually, the more we sort of ride this wave, we're spending more time in presence. We're spending more time in awareness. We're watching when we slip and we're aware of it. That's the key difference. We start to know, we start to notice when I'm slipping down so that we have agency, we have sovereignty to begin to move back into those places that we're starting to get aligned with. So all of this is to say, I think we have this opportunity to be lifting our consciousness together and knowing that us doing the inner work, us committing to this, is not only shifting our experience of life, but we are helping people who are stuck below that 200 level, right? We are helping shift consciousness of the planet. So there's a lot of conversation right now in many of the things that I'm watching and consuming and reading about the fact that we are moving to a new earth. We are moving to a new human, a more evolved version. And I don't know about you, but I hope to be a part of that expansion instead of staying stuck in the old patterning that was my way of life for, like I said, decades at a time. So I promised you all a meditation, and there's nothing better than meditating with 80 people. So I thought we'd do a meditation, but I want to take a look at some of the questions to see if there's anything that we want to converse about before we jump on a brief meditation today. Some of the questions, the yoga teacher training is in person. The reclaim is online because it works really well online. And oftentimes people in the winter don't want to go out. And then the yoga for the mind is also online. So, yeah. Pat says she stopped watching the news a while back and it's helped. Yeah. I had this conversation also with my mentor last night, and maybe some of you relate to this, that when you are a values-driven person, when you want to be engaged in the world, you want to know, there's this sense of like, but it's my responsibility to be up to date on what's happening in the world. Like, as a smart, well-read person, I want to know these things. But every time I dip into that world, then my whole vibration and energy goes down. And so, like, what's the balance? And I can't figure that out for anyone but myself. But it is something to think about. Like, being engaged in all the details of the world, if that lowers our vibration down so much that then it's harder for us to be in a higher frequency with our family and our students and our workplace and our children, is it worth being that engaged with the news and what's going on in the world? I don't know. Again, it's a hard question. It's one each of us, I think, are being asked to sort of wrestle with and come to terms with. But I'm sort of with Pat. I have to really be very aware of how much I consume. Um, yeah, reclaim program. I'm going to answer this question, Michelle, and then we will go into a meditation. The reclaim program, reclaim is just the idea of going in and down. So going in and down, moving into the self. We use the dark days of fall into winter to sort of amplify our capacity to look inward. It's an 8-week program of shadow work, and it's really based on the heroine's journey. But this year we're also going to bring in the hero's journey. They're two different ones. And we're going to work with balancing and healing and integrating and reclaiming both the feminine parts of ourself that have been pushed away. What are the feminine parts? They're our intuition, our connection to our body, our sensuality, our wisdom, our power, reclaiming those things. But they're also reclaiming our masculine parts that have been pushed aside or maybe amplified into more of a toxic manner. So, what are aspects of the healed masculine that we want to bring in? It's action, it's focus, it's determination, it's consciousness. So, it's balancing these opposite but connected energies within ourselves so that we show up in the world more balanced. So for many of us, we carry much more masculine energy than feminine, and other of us carry more feminine than masculine. It doesn't necessarily have to do with gender, by the way, or sexual orientation. And so we're working with understanding that elusive balance of these energies in ourselves and figuring out what parts of ourselves need to be reclaimed for us to move into more of an integrative whole person. I've been working in this realm for the last 4 or 5 years, and I find it fascinating. Again, the new piece I'm adding this year for people who've done this program in the past is understanding more the masculine. We've worked really primarily in the feminine, and we're going to bring in more consciousness, more action, more focus, more determination as well to the intuition, the body base, the somatic, the power of the feminine. So that's what we're doing. Yeah. Julie, could you explain how I think you're talking about David Hawkins, arrived at the conclusion that higher vibrations from people counteracted lower vibes from people? I so want to believe this. I know, I know, I know. Um, could I tell you the exact way that Dr. Hawkins measured this and came up with that exact um, percentage? No. And my guess is, he didn't take a huge sample size of the US and actually measure this. I think it was probably from his years of working with the map of consciousness and working with thousands of clients. Um, but it makes sense that we're working with vibrational frequencies. So higher frequencies have more oomph, more power than lower frequencies. So it doesn't take as many people experiencing high frequencies to balance out those at a more low frequency. So I think my guess, but again, I'm not Dr. Hawkins, and I don't know how he came up with that 85%. But I think it makes sense from a logical standpoint that higher frequency emotions just carry more power. It's like the idea, and I think you've heard me say this before in classes. My meditation teacher, Dr. Chopra, always talked about the most powerful person in the room is the calmest person. And he had done some research on this as well. And this is the concept of entrainment, that he put multiple people in a room, put them, measured their galvanic skin response, hooked up their heads to brainwave, looking at brainwaves, and then none of them interacted or talked. But what he found is that the person who was the calmest, who had the most peace in the room, so had the highest frequency emotion, was able to entrain or pull the people with lower frequency up to their level, which is why he came up with this very sort of well-known, famous sort of idea: the most powerful person in the room is the calmest person in the room. And I think that sort of mirrors Dr. Hawkins' research, that if we are experiencing these higher frequency emotions, that we have capacity to sort of bring people up to that level or to shift their nervous system. And I find this to be the case if I'm with a person who has a highly regulated nervous system. Like I have a couple friends who are so regulated, like they have decades of practice in their bodies. And when I'm around them, just being in their presence, I'm like, oh, I feel so good around this person. Now, likewise, we all have people in our life because the world is a mixed bag and we need all these people to learn from. I have other people in my life who are quite dysregulated. And so being around them, I can feel my nervous system sort of impacted by that. So, again, I wish I could tell you exact science, Julie, but I hope this extra explanation gives you a little bit more guidance on that. And I have the book. In fact, we were thinking about doing a book club at Heartland on that exact book because there's so much in it. So Megan Carnahan, a good friend of ours, said, let's do a book club on this book. So maybe we'll do that and we can all have more conversation about it. Okay. Let's do a little bit of meditation. So the meditation I want to guide us through is extremely simple. It's one that once you get the hang of this, you will be able to implement on your own. And more than that, it is such a powerful meditation to work with bringing the energy in and down. So this, again, this focus of this season, this transition we're in, is we have to bring the energy in. And we have to get that energy grounded down. Now, before we start this meditation, I want you to understand that as we move down in the body, you might reach a place in your body where you're like, yeah, Betsy, I can't go any deeper, right? Like I can get my awareness and my energy down, but it stops here. I can't get it all the way down. Totally okay. Just notice that. Be with that. Be curious about that. So often, if we are carrying some energetic blocks or some emotional blocks in the body, it is much harder to keep going down because as we go deeper down, we start to dip more into some of the unresolved stuff that we have. So if you can only get to a certain level, again, no blame, no shame, no problem. That's curious. That's interesting. All right. That's good for me to know. Self-study. So in this meditation, we're going to work on sort of just continuing to drop a little bit deeper with each breath that we take. Again, be curious. I would also say be curious about images, thoughts, feelings, anything that comes up. You don't have to push it away. You don't have to be frustrated by it. We're, again, when we meditate, when we move into this space, we're trying to be the witness. We're just trying to witness. All right, that's enough setup for it. So if you're in a place, not driving, hopefully, where you can close your eyes and settle in, I encourage you to take your meditative seat. And so this means sitting tall, long, spacious, erect spine. Ideally, the weight is settled over the sit bones so that you are able to access what in the yoga tradition is called the central channel, Sushumna Nadi, which is where the energy centers of the body reside, and also is thought to believe where our capacity to heal resides in that central channel. So once you find a nice, long, tall spine, it's almost as if you're rising up through the crown of the head. Then see if you can maintain this tall spine, but allow the body to begin to soften. So the shoulders relax down away from the ears. Your skin begins to soften, the face, any clenching of the jaw or the brow begins to release. And essentially, we find ourselves moving into more of a receptive state. And as you are starting this process of moving your attention inward, I just want to acknowledge that you are meditating right now with 80 other people. And even if you're watching this video at a later time, we're all tapping into an energetic space that we often talk about meditation being outside of space and time. So even though we might be in all different places across the country, we energetically do align in this state of meditation, which means all of us are benefiting from whoever is the most regulated right now in this group. Whoever you are, thank you. As it's allowing all of us to drop and settle in just a little deeper. So as your awareness continues to move in and down, I invite you to become aware of the breath. And the breath is deep. It's diaphragmatic, breathing into the navel. And slowing the exhale down. So you could certainly breathe out through your nose. You could breathe out through a straw, whatever feels most intuitive, but feeling an extended exhale that naturally slows the body and the mind down. Those of you who are familiar with that Ujjayi ocean sounding breath might also just have a faint, subtle sound, slight constriction in the back of the throat that you are listening to as you inhale and as you exhale. Now, as you stay committed, connected to your breath, feel your awareness now floating right at the crown of the head. So you start to become very aware of the space just right above the crown of the head. Now, on the next inhale you take, it's as if you are breathing this awareness, this expanded space above you down through the crown of the head into the space between the eyebrows. And as you exhale, see if you can stay in that space between the eyebrows, the third eye. As you stay in the space between the eyebrows, on this next inhale, you breathe into that third eye. And as you exhale, now you start to drop your attention down into the space of the throat, that little notch, the base of the throat, and then stay there. Stay in that notch, the base of the throat. And again, when the next inhale comes, it's as if you're breathing into that notch at the base of the throat. And as you exhale, you drop down now to the center of the heart. stay now in the center of the heart. Breathing into the center of the heart. So although each in-breath could have the possibility of popping us back up and out, we are attempting with each breath to stay at the level that we've descended to. And then on the next breath, drop just a little deeper. So we're still in the center of the heart. Breathing into the center of the heart. And as you exhale now, you see about dropping awareness down to the navel center. And then staying in that navel center. So even when the inhale comes, awareness remains tethered or connected to the depth of the navel center. So now you're inhaling into the navel center. And as you exhale, now you're dropping down one more level, down into pubic bone, perineum, down into the depths of the pelvis. And you're just observing with that curious witness, watching, can I stay? Instead of popping back up to my headspace, can I stay breathing down in the depth of my pelvis? Is it possible to keep my attention and my awareness deep down in the depths? And so from the depths of the pelvis, breathing into pubic bone, perineum, even the hips. On this next exhale, can you now feel your attention drop all the way down to the feet? So now your awareness is all the way down, soles of the feet. Breathing in and out of soles of feet. Keeping your attention down. Now, to bring some conclusion to this meditation, in a moment we'll work with 3 full breaths. And this time we will move awareness from feet to crown or from pelvis to crown. And then as we exhale, we'll move back down. So now we're bringing energy up and down the spine, just as a sort of final 3 breath practice to really clear and purify that central channel. So awareness is still down in the feet, or if it's hard to be in the feet, maybe your focus is down in the base of the pelvis. When your next inhale comes, you're now breathing from feet or pelvis all the way up the spine to the crown of the head, maybe even holding that breath in as you keep your awareness right at the crown. And then as you exhale, it's that familiar descent moving from the crown back down to pelvis or all the way down to the feet. Now do this 2 more times. Breathing, it's as if you're pulling earth energy up through the feet, up through the pelvis, all the way up through that central channel to the crown. And you pause there. You let yourself just sort of hover in that awareness at your crown. And then that awareness on the exhale moves back down to pelvis or feet. Do one final sweep up the central channel and back down. And then to conclude the meditation, hands come in front of the heart. Let's rub those palms together. Just create some heat, some friction, some energy. Place those hands over the sockets of the eyes. Keep the eyes closed. Feel that heat start to emanate into the sockets of the eyes. Now start to blink the eyes open, but gaze of the eyes is still down towards the earth. We've done all kinds of grounding. Keep your gaze down. And then slowly start to release hands down to the tops of the thighs. Then lift your head and then open your eyes. All right, so working our way down. As I said, sometimes we reach a point in the body where we're like, oh, I can't get any deeper than my heart. I noticed in years past that I got real stuck around my navel. I couldn't really get down in my pelvis very deep. So, or you might have been able to really shift awareness and stay down. Again, just a really grounding, easy practice. Doesn't have to take long. Crown to third eye to throat, throat to heart, heart to navel, navel to pubic bone, and then pubic bone to feet. And then we did 3 final sweeps up and down central channel. All right, friends, that's what I got for you today for Wisdom Wednesday. Will not be with you in October. I'm going to be with a group of 44 women in Greece studying the divine feminine on the island of Paros. So I won't be with you in October, but I will be back in November and December. Also, how long was that meditation? I have no idea, Michelle. Actually, I do know. I think we started about 12:40 and it's about 12:56. So about 15 minutes, I think, is about how long it took. 11 minutes. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle kept time. Good to see all of you. Some of you have been with me many programs in the past. Natalie, it's awesome to see you. Michelle, Brenda, Ben, Ben. Thought of you a lot, Ben, as I'm thinking about Iceland these days. So yay, everyone. So good. Yeah, Michelle, take it to your class. Share, share, share. Share this information. This will be on the YouTube channel. Share this, especially with people you know who struggle in the fall. Like I said, I struggled for many years thinking there was something wrong with me, that somehow I was imbalanced or crazy. And now I understand I am a sensitive being that really struggles with this transition to the fall. Also, though, once I started to do the internal excavation, I'm noticing that I still struggle a little bit, but not to the depths that I did years ago. So there is, once you start to clear out what's down in that subconscious, maybe as my friend said to me this morning, this time is pulling us in and down. If you're pulling in and down and there's not as much to excavate down there, you don't have the intensity of maybe fear or melancholy that has been there in years past. So, good reason to get in and excavate. Yep, this will be a recording on YouTube. It'll be up within the next couple hours. Great to be back with all of you. Yeah, so there will be yeah, and Lisa, we'll get you on the list for trips. The next retreat I teach is my favorite retreat center ever. It's Blue Spirit in Nosara, Costa Rica, and we're going in May. And this will be great because right now we're dealing with fall. Fall is a really hard transition. Spring is the other hard transition. Winter, summer don't seem to be as hard of transitions, mental health wise. Spring is a lot about heaviness and depression. And so I actually love to retreat in spring as a way to start to lift off some of that heaviness. So then we go into the season of summer much already lighter and brighter. And that retreat in May is going to focus on lifting the heaviness of the winter. So yeah, we'll get you on that. We'd love to have you join us sometime, Lisa. And I know there's still some spots in that one. So, okay, everyone. Glad to be back with all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take good care of yourself in the fall. And yeah, pass this on to people who need it. And know that you're part of that higher percent shifting the planet. Like we have opportunity because we're drawn to this. We have opportunity to be of service, even just through our presence. We don't have to get on YouTube and teach. Our presence begins to shift those around us. So keep doing that beautiful work. All right. Much love to all of you.